is going to be a demo of my somewhat working prototype of an air tank using soda bottles, 3D printed caps, a 1/4" NPT thread to Schrader valve, a vinyl tubing, hose clamps, and an air regulator. So the way that it works is you first need to fill it up. I prefer just to use a bike pump, so you just attach it here, tighten it up, and right now we are about a little less than 20 psi, so after a few pumps, you can see that we are now a little past or at 20 psi. So it does take a while to fill up this air tank, just because the volume of it is pretty high. So it's 6 liters because it's 3 2-liter soda bottles. I've tried to use these pumps, so I would not recommend getting a foot pump just because the volume per pump is it's very little, so it's going to take you even longer to fill up your air tank. If you want to get an electric portable pump, I would say it's worth it, just because pumping up this air tank can get tiresome. So on a full charge, you can fill up your tank about 2.5 times, and for me, a full tank is about 60 psi. So I say 60 psi because that's when the air starts to leak. So that is a pretty big problem where this tank has a lot of slow leaks, pretty much everywhere where you can imagine. So once you fill up your tank, you just remove the bike pump, and then you get your valve, and then you just turn this knob clockwise, and that lets the air out. So this gauge does not show how much pressure is in your tanks. It just shows how much pressure is on the output side of this valve. So if I close off the airflow here and turn the knob like that, you can see that I have a pretty good control of how much air goes through. So having this gauge is pretty nice, or having this valve and gauge is pretty nice. So now I'm just going to go through each one of the 3D printed parts, because there are 4 3D printed parts. This cap right here is what I call the fill cap. It looks like this, and the way that it creates a seal between the cap and the bottle is I use a bicycle inner tube. So this is what it looks like, or it's a tube, it's a bicycle inner tube that I cut up into the shape of a donut, and I just put it inside like that, and then you just screw it onto your bottle. For the Schrader valve, it uses a Schrader to 1/4" NPT thread, so it looks like this, and it just screws into the cap like that. And for the plumber's tape, I use Blue Monster. I've used the white plumber's tape in the past, but I've noticed that this plumber's tape is a lot thicker. So, I just wrap it around the threads, 2 or 3 times, and it does the job. Or at least it does it. I don't know. I like it a lot better than the white plumber's tape, just because it's a lot thicker, and so it doesn't fall apart as easily. So yeah, that's the fill cap. This cap right here is what I call a link cap, and it just looks like this. So the link cap is just used for linking bottles between other bottles, so you can basically just have a infinite chain of soda bottles. And you'll notice that this cap does not have any ridges around the stem part, whereas this cap does. In my experience, I've noticed that having a ridge or no ridge doesn't really affect if air can get through. So far, my design has always let air through past 60 psi. So I'm probably going to scrap this design and use something else. This part right here is 2 3D printed parts and the valve, and it looks like this. So I'm calling this like an output valve or output cap, and it just uses the same 1/4" NPT thread that's on this Schrader valve, and it just screws in like that. And I could have also bought an adapter for 1/4 inch MPT male to fit this vinyl tubing. But I figured I have a 3D printer, so I might as well just design my own, and it works pretty well. So yeah, that's pretty much most of the parts for, or all the parts for this 3D printed, partly 3D printed air tank. For now, I'm going to try to sell the STL files of these different 3D printed parts, and I'll also leave the Amazon links in the description if you want to buy the parts for this air tank. I won't, you can just go to the recycling and just get a soda bottle. But yeah, check the description for how you can get these parts. I'm still deciding on how I should distribute the STL files for these, because there's definitely a few options I could go through. So yeah, check the description, and thanks for watching.